There was a man named James Thompson, an American, born with a burning desire to be known, to be seen, to be the best. His dream? To become a world-renowned dancer. He danced from the moment he could walk, his body a vessel of passion and movement. But fame eluded him, despite years of sacrifice and obsession. He would audition again and again, but always come second. The title of number one seemed to slip further away with every performance, like a fleeting shadow. James couldn't accept it. He couldn't live with the idea of always being just shy of greatness. He trained tirelessly, hours upon hours in every free moment. But no matter how hard he worked, the world always decided someone else was just a little bit better. This torment turned into a sickness, a gnawing hunger that consumed him, a need to be the absolute best, to be remembered forever. Then, the moment he had been waiting for arrived. The Global Dance Championship, the show that would crown the greatest dancer of all time. The prize? Fame, fortune, immortality. And this time, he made it to the final five. The top 5 dancers, the best in the world. But even then, as the other contestants gathered on the final night, a sense of dread washed over James. He had been here before, so close, always just one step away. As he stared into the hotel room mirror, the fear gripped him. The fear of being in second place once more. He wasn't going to allow it. Not this time. He couldn't bear it. His hands trembled as he practiced his thank you speech in front of the mirror, envisioning himself standing on stage, holding the trophy high. But the dread was still there, haunting him. His mind raced, his thoughts twisted in dark spirals. What if, just what if, one of the other contestants was better than him? He had to do something. He had to win. He couldn't leave it to chance anymore. And that's when it came to him. An idea so dark, so dangerous, it chilled his very soul. He would remove the competition. James's father had once been an engineer, a man who understood the inner workings of machinery. Specifically, lifts. He had taught his son many things about mechanics and how the tiniest adjustment could bring about great change. And so, it was with these dark thoughts in his mind that James set his plan into motion. That night, as the other contestants were getting ready for the final performance, James snuck into the hotel's lift shaft. The other 4 contestants were staying on the same floor, preparing for their big night. They had no idea what was coming. James reached the roof of the lift, where he carefully tampered with the cables, loosening the tension just enough to cause the lift to fail under the weight of its passengers. With his work done, he hurried down to the lobby and exited the building, as if nothing had happened. The plan was set. All he needed to do now was wait for the chaos to unfold. The other contestants gathered in the lift to descend to the stage. James stood in the crowd of fans, watching as the doors closed. His heart raced. He grinned, imagining their panic as the lift plunged into darkness. The lift roared with a screeching sound, followed by a deafening crash. The building shook, sending tremors through the entire hotel. The sound of metal breaking and glass shattering echoed through the walls. James stood frozen, a sickening grin creeping across his face. His plan had worked. But then, the news came. The show was postponed. The other contestants had been severely injured in the accident. They survived, but it would be weeks before they could dance again. No winner would be crowned that night. James was furious. His plan had failed. He had tampered with fate, but fate had not obeyed him. He needed to win. He had to. As he returned to his hotel room, the guilt began to gnaw at him. He had been so consumed by his obsession that he hadn't thought about the consequences. The weight of his actions pressed down on him like a cold, suffocating fog. The room felt claustrophobic, the walls closing in around him. And then he heard it. A whisper. A low, guttural sound, like the wind howling through the cracks in the walls. "You won't win. Not like this." James froze. The voice came from nowhere. It echoed in his ears, a dark, malevolent presence that seemed to fill the room. His heart pounded in his chest as he turned toward the source of the sound, but the room was empty. Then, another whisper, louder this time, close to his ear. "You'll never be the best. You'll always be second." The temperature in the room dropped. His breath came in quick gasps. The walls seemed to pulse with an energy that made his skin crawl. Panic surged through him. Was he losing his mind? Was this a result of the guilt? Or had something darker come into play? Suddenly, the hotel lights flickered. The mirror in his room cracked down the center. James's reflection stared back at him, but it wasn't him. His reflection grinned, an empty, soulless smile that didn't match his own terrified expression. He stepped back in horror. The reflection in the mirror began to speak, its voice a deep, distorted version of his own. "You think you can escape it? The curse of second place? You'll never be number one. Never. Not while I'm here." With a scream, James backed away from the mirror, tripping and falling to the ground. His heart thudded in his chest as he tried to shake the image from his mind. But it was too late. The next few days were a blur. He could feel it, a presence following him wherever he went. No matter how much he practiced, how much he danced, there was always a voice, always a shadow just behind him. The other contestants, though injured, were recovering. Soon, the show would go on. James found himself pacing in his room, his body shaking. He had to do something. He had to win. But no matter what he did, the darkness in his mind grew stronger. It wasn't just guilt anymore. It was something far worse. He felt like he was being watched, followed. The whispers became louder, more persistent. "You'll never be number one. Never." One night, during his final practice, he pushed himself harder than ever before. The room was dimly lit, the silence broken only by the sound of his feet slapping against the floor. Sweat dripped from his brow, his body moving like a machine, but he could feel the eyes on him, watching. The shadows around him seemed to grow longer, more alive. Suddenly, he felt a cold hand grip his shoulder. He spun around, but no one was there. The mirror on the wall cracked once more, the reflection staring back at him, not moving in sync with his own body. The grin on his reflection grew wider, impossibly wide. "You're not the best. You never will be." With a scream, James staggered backward, but the room was now a different place. The walls warped and twisted, the hotel itself shifting, becoming something dark and foreboding. The door slammed shut, and he was trapped, alone with the thing that had been haunting him. In the final showdown, when the remaining contestants finally returned to perform, James danced with wild, frantic energy. But it was no longer a contest. His mind was broken, consumed by the darkness of his obsession. His body moved, but it was no longer him controlling it. He had won, but at what cost? The judges stood in silence, staring at him with horror. The crowd too was silent. James stood there grinning, but his victory was hollow. The curse of second place had followed him, and now he would never be free.